Hi everybody, my name's Elaine, as you might already know, and I just want to have a few minutes just to share about the Lord in my life and my journey with Him, and just share a few thoughts and hopefully some encouragement, and just share His love in my life and His love that could be in your life. It's hard to talk about yourself. Well, I find it hard to talk about myself for 10 minutes-ish. If I had to talk about Liverpool Football Club for 10 minutes or the Blue Jays, then that probably would be great, but it's different talking about yourself. I hope it's not boring. I hope it's encouraging, and anyway, I'll just share as much as I can that will help. It's not a thunder and lightning fireworks testimony that was an amazing encounter with God, but every encounter with God when He comes into your life is amazing. It doesn't have to be huge and so dramatic that, you know, it's just incredible. It's always incredible. So that was kind of how my encounter with Him has been, but my life with Him so far has been incredible. So a little bit about my background. I'm not from here, as you can tell. I was born in Liverpool, best city in the world, in England. I have a wonderful mum, Joan, and my dad, Trevor, who passed away quite a few years ago, and a sister, Leslie, back home. But I'm also the wife of Dave, who you might know, might have heard of. And I have wonderful children in Hannah and Matt, and wonderful extra children by marriage in Richard and Nikita. And so that's my beautiful family that I love and cherish. So I grew up around Liverpool, where I was born, moved a little way away from there, had a very loving family, was just a quiet, kind of gentle kind of girl as I grew up, and sort of just went through school, had some good friends, had some not so good friends, and just kind of got through those teenage years quite quietly. I got to 15 and I was very ill for a few weeks and was in hospital. I was in a little isolation room because they didn't really know what was wrong with me, and I was lonely and I was scared and I was afraid, and I had never even thought about God. I'd never opened a Bible, but obviously they're the times when you think, maybe I need a little bit of help and encouragement from something else or somebody else. And of course, wonderfully, the Gideon Bibles are often in places like hospitals and hotels, and so there I was at 15 and pretty poorly, away from my family, and I opened the drawer of my bedside table, and there was the Gideon's Bible. I did the classic thing that people do and said, okay then God, if you're real, here's the Bible that I've never even opened. Maybe you're going to show me who you are, and you're going to show me something. And we've all done it. You just open it and hope that He's going to show you something. And of course He did. In that time, that was the time when He wanted me to know Him. And literally, as people say, the words that jump out from a page were the words from Isaiah 40:31. But those whose hope is in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. How wonderful those to be the first words that you read from God's Word in the time when you're frightened and you're lonely and you're vulnerable. You're 15 and you're in the little hospital room. And I just knew then that I belonged to Him and He belonged to me. And I just had myself to pray a prayer to just say, you know, Lord, I get it, and I think that I know what you're trying to say to me, and I know that you're showing me who you are. And so, obviously, I got better. I was in hospital for 5 weeks. I came home and I just sought out my local church because I knew I needed to go and be there and be in fellowship with Him and other people. I persuaded my mum to come, which was great. And I just kind of got to know God. I didn't really know a lot about having a relationship with Jesus through those couple of years, but I was confirmed in it was an Anglican church with my mum, and that was another time of affirmation to say, and this is my dedication to you, Lord. Like, I'm showing that I want to be with you in my life, and so that was a pretty wonderful time. And I just sort of gently grew in my faith and my understanding, and I would read the Bible and didn't really always kind of know what it was all about, but I kind of was learning and growing. Then I met my beloved Dave, and that changed my faith so dramatically, because he could teach me and show me and could pray the prayer with me that I would give my life to Jesus, that he would teach me and help me to understand what this really, really meant, that I needed to give my life to him. I needed to be his child. I needed to grow and to really open up my faith and my belief. And so, in that time of our marriage, early in our marriage together, we grew together so much in our faith, and especially me, through Dave's encouragement and teaching and loving and just helping me through those times. So that was wonderful. And then we had our wonderful children, who I mentioned earlier. I was working as a travel agent, but then I left to have our children, and I was privileged to have a good few years at home with them. Having my kids was amazing. I had midwives to look after me, and through the years I often just would think about what they did as a job and what that meant to me as I had Hannah and Matt. And I actually to this day don't really know how I ended up being a midwife, but I do know because the Lord guided me. But it was through them and their care for me that I thought maybe I could do that job and I could have the privilege of doing that work. And not being the most academic person in the world, somehow he got me through 3 years of really hard training, shift work when Dave was in the police, wonderful family to help to look after the children, and I did it, and I became a midwife 15 years ago. That's been just an incredible part of my life. It's been very scary at times. It's been so joyful. It's been hard work. There's been sad times too. And a big part of my training was spent in kind of fear and, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. And lots of arrow prayers to the Lord in times when I was like, I just want to stand in the corner and not do this. We had a guy come to a church that we were at previously that preached and was talking a lot about the verses in Joshua, where God keeps telling him over and over again, be strong and courageous. Have I not told you? Have I not commanded you? Don't be afraid. Be strong and be very courageous. And I would replay those words as I travelled to and from my shifts every day, that I can do this, but I have to be strong and I have to have courage and I have to trust God. And that made all the difference, I have to say. Through those times as well, with Dave in the police and our children growing up, there was a lot of times when Dave was in danger, or I was afraid and scared for him as well. So we really had to trust the Lord to care for us and protect us and our family through those times as well, and he sure did. And then fast forward a few years, that we ended up coming here to Winnipeg. Our family came, our Hannah and Matt came, our dog came, and the Lord brought us here in the most amazing way. Not that we ever expected to come here and for Dave to be the pastor here at St. Aidan's and for me to be a midwife here, but the Lord had it all figured out. I knew that this is where we would be when Dave came to do part of his training here, and Hannah, Matt and I came for a holiday over Easter, and we were flying over here together, and we were sleeping. I opened my eyes and we just kind of hit land, and of course it was March, and so of course there was snow here, and as I opened my eyes and looked out of the window of the plane, I just felt I was at home, and I almost kind of said out loud, oh, we're home now. Like, why would I ever feel and think that if it wasn't because God wanted this to be our new home? So we've had 8 wonderful years here so far. As I say, our kids married wonderful people. I've managed to do midwifery here, got into the program and have a job working here as well. So the Lord has just really honoured our obedience to him, I would say, and our just following him, even though we weren't sure if this was really what we should be doing. Leaving family was so hard and still is, but we just trust him to care for them too, and to trust him for our life here. That's kind of like a little synopsis of Elaine Labdon's life. But in as much as like my walk with God and through that, I've thought about it as a bit like seasons and different seasons in your life. I go back to when I was 15 and the time in hospital. I think about having our children. I think about training to be a midwife. I think about moving here. And then our lives going forward as we look forward to whatever the Lord might bring. And thinking about it in different seasons, maybe you could kind of think about that in the same way. Think about the spring season when you're thinking of like new life and new hope and excitement about new adventures and new things. I've certainly had those in my life. Think about the summer when everything just feels like settled and warm, and things have grown and things have flourished, and you can just kind of be. Certainly that's probably how I feel a little bit now in this time of my life. Think about the fall when things are just kind of not as fruitful, or just beginning to feel like things are just sort of changing, and it's hard when you have changes that you don't really expect or want to have happening. They're hard times, and that was maybe when I lost my dad and moving here, and the bittersweet sort of feelings of like leaving people behind, but the excitement of moving on to something new, but knowing there was big changes to happen. And of course winter is the season when things are hard and harsh, and you have to go through hard times. We certainly had those things in our lives as well, and with health and with losing loved ones and being separated from loved ones, and hard work and sad things at work, and things that really sort of tear at your heart, and loving people at St. Aidan's and losing them, and just going through different things. So I think you could all relate to the different seasons with the Lord, but know that he's in them all, that his purposes are in them all. And we have to go through things like this to grow, and for him to be able to speak to us and to encourage us. One of the biggest things I feel where I've let the Lord down is not spending that time with him that he deserves, not cherishing quiet times with him and reading his word and really showing how much I'm committed to him. And I am sorry to him for that. I'm sure we all have those times, and you can relate to those things too. But you always just have to know that he's ever faithful. He knows that you aren't always going to get it right. He knows that we're always not going to spend the time with him that we should. He knows that we get distracted, and that we'll sometimes lose our faith in him, and we might get angry with him or upset with him. He knows those things. But he would always encourage us. He always loves us. He always will be there for us. Some of my favourite verses as well that are in Corinthians that talk about his love that never fails, that always perseveres, that always trusts, that he will never let us down in his love for us. And so he'll never be disappointed in us. We just have to love him. We just have to show him that we are his children, and that's all he asks of us, and just give our lives to him. Dave and I's favourite verse ever is the verse in Proverbs which says to trust in the Lord with all your heart, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct our paths. And there could be no truer verse for our life, Dave and my life, in him, because he has done that always. And he will always do that, and I know that he'll do that for all of us. So be encouraged by those verses. Be encouraged if you didn't have a fireworks and thunder and lightning testimony to give, but know that the Lord has come into your life and your heart no matter how it happened, and that he will always be there. Trust him for all the seasons of your life, and just love him and let him love you, and always follow him. And I just pray that some of what I've said will speak to you, and that you can relate to those things as well, and yeah, just be the Lord's child and let him love you, and just follow him in whatever the way that you can. Thank you guys for listening to me.